Tata Martino, head coach of Inter Miami, said as long as Messi doesn't mention anything, he's going to keep playing. That's crazy talk.
Lock your door.
Yeah.
If you're Tata Martino, just keep your door locked. I didn't hear from him.
I didn't. He's going to be fine.
My voicemail box is full. If he says he left me a voicemail, he's lying.
Well, that was before the Open Cup semifinal. Afterwards, Tata said, "From this point forward, we will evaluate how we approach these next 3 games, and the first game of these 3 is the New York Red Bulls in New York." Now, how do you think Red Bull fans will react if he doesn't play? Tickets are starting at $343.
I'll tell you, right? The moment he said that, there was just a big gulp from every marketing team in the league, going "Welp, let's just hope that it's not our game." Because when I like I said, I was at the LAFC game yesterday when they put an absolute beating on Colorado from start to finish, but
4-0.
Right? No, right?
LAFC won 4-0. I think I'm right.
Is it? Was that what it was? Yeah,
don't doubt me.
Absolute beating. Yeah. But at that stadium, they're already talking about sort of the Messi mania, right? Of how chaotic it's going to be, the added security, the fact that they're worried people are going to try to run into the stadium and just run through, and the amount of that level of magnitude. It is it's like Lionel Messi and Taylor Swift are the two the resale, they are driving the GDP of small countries when they come into towns right now, of just people wanting to see them and find a way to be part of it. That you don't want to be the team that ends up being the one where he is. Remember, I go back to that Argentina game in Giant Stadium that in 2008 where he wasn't in the starting lineup. They said that's not in the contract. Then magically after warmups, he was in the starting lineup in the walkout for us. He played 1 half and they took him off. And that to me was enough, because I can say, hey, I played against Messi. But the people in the stadium that maybe, because you use marketing materials or whatever, that could have been a really disappointing day if all you got to see was Mascherano and Kun Aguero and the other superstars of the world. But they're not the greatest,
Yeah, I'm curious to see what Tata Martino and Leo Messi ultimately decide to do. They play the Red Bulls this weekend. Then they have they'll be in Miami against Nashville, who they played in the Leagues Cup final. I could see him sitting that one out, to be honest. And then they go to LA and take on LAFC, as you mentioned, before heading back. Then they have a week break before they take on Sporting Kansas City. My Sporting Kansas City back in Miami. I think that I could see him sitting out that Nashville game. The problem is they need all the points that they possibly can get to get in the league, playoffs, that is. And so taking a night off doesn't really help the cause. But because they already got to play against Nashville, I wonder.
Yeah.
I mean, because
in his contract, he says I have to play everybody once,
something like that. Yeah, I wonder. And then, I mean, I could see him not starting. Let me say it like this. Maybe even this weekend against New York. So for all the fans that are taking a big gulp, if he doesn't start, I could see him still coming off the bench and playing 30 minutes and probably doing something special in those 30 minutes. You won't get your full money's worth, but you might get some.
So can run around the field and kick balls into the stands. Fans,
he could do one of those T-shirt machines where he could fire T-shirts into the crowd. That would be amazing. But I wonder how they're going to balance that, because obviously if you want him to stay as sharp as possible, he needs some rest. I know that we think he's a robot in a lot of different ways, but it's going to be interesting. So thinking about Messi, or let's say life without Messi, Miami's just not as good. You got Jordi Alba and you got Busquets, and they're going to help move the game along and help you transition from defense to attack and do it in a smooth way. And I think that Messi has obviously elevated the performances of a lot of others. Robert Taylor in particular stands out. Campana, obviously going to be on the end of some.
Kremoski, another one.
Benjamin Kremoski, who we're going to get into his potential call-up to the U.S. men's national team here in a second. But what do you do? And then with Argentina, has got a couple CONMEBOL World Cup qualifiers. They play Ecuador at home and then Bolivia away, which would conflict with Sporting Kansas City and Atlanta games that are coming up in the schedule. I I thought he retired from our national team. Is he still gonna go help them qualify, or is he playing the Copa America next summer? He's got to be playing Copa America next summer.
Yeah, there's got to be like that
Yep.
reinvigoration. Like, why? What's like he's won it all now, and now the edge is off. I would see him going through 2026. You know, on some role. Be silly not to come here and not be part of all of that. I mean, I know there's more to it than that. Like, what do you give the guy that has everything? You know, like,
wouldn't you want to end your World Cup career like on winning the World Cup? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, but also like now he's in the U.S. 2026.
I will say
like,
this. Maybe we discussed it before, Heath, but I want to bring it back because I think it's important. When I watch him play now, he looks like he's having a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and he's got a smile on his face, and I can't tell you how important that is for a player to, especially in this point in his career where he's gone through so much and dealt with so much, especially contrasting what happened in Paris with PSG, where he looked like he was miserable. Yeah, he was playing with Mbappe and Neymar and arguably surrounded by some of the best players in the world, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee happiness, especially if he's going home and his family's miserable and they all just look like they're having the best time. And that's awesome. And I think that's going to really show. And it already has shown on the field. But I just wanted to throw that out there because I think
it's a great shout.
Just in terms of mental health, right? I mean, I know that we don't really dive into that side of it too much, even though it's a topic that I think is very important. His mental health looks fantastic right now. And listen, they haven't lost yet. So, and he's not, he's getting closer to that really difficult MLS grind. It's coming. Yeah. And I think he can start to feel it a little bit. And so we haven't seen him get frustrated. We haven't seen him throw up his arms every 3 seconds like Thierry Henry there for a while, which I called Thierry Henry out. I called him out on that in an interview on Kick TV a long time ago, and Henry wouldn't answer my question. And he held a grudge against me for like the next year. I absolutely loved it. But you got to love TT.
No, I mean, you're totally right. I think and I had tweeted it at some point too, and it wasn't like a tweet for like, you know, vanity metric type tweet. It was the fact that like seeing somebody play at the top of their game, and you actually see this in other sports, but soccer can be so serious at times because it's this fluid type of game of margins, right? Baseball, basketball, game of averages, you know, in terms of seasons, in terms of matches played and all of that, you're just constantly playing games. Football just has a lot more of that kind of ego involved where you see that there's a lot of seriousness as well, but you see smiles and you're also behind helmets. And then to soccer, you just don't see a lot of that joy. We saw that with Ronaldinho, and now to see that with Messi while he's playing at the top of his game, having fun, it just brings to life, like it humanizes this like guy who is just like so far beyond our understanding that I think it's great inspiration for somebody to see somebody playing at that level, entertaining, but also like not making it just about like serious, get the job done, and actually taking a moment. Because, you know, there's times that I look back on my career, Jimmy, and maybe you feel the same, where I just wish that I would have just like not been caught in the emotions of a game and just actually been like, man, this is fun. Like, how lucky am I? And you do that occasionally, but like, there's also this like side of you that's like, don't let any of this into your brain when you're playing a game, right? Because this will like relax you, or it's a weakness. And to have somebody do it at that level, I think it's just fun. If you're a kid that's being inspired, that's on the edge of like, do I want to play anymore? And you see somebody who's been doing it as long as he had, smiling, I don't know. It's got to be motivating on some
100%, 100%. So I guess the big question is this: if Leo Messi rests, what happens? What's the team look like? I actually thought it was pretty telling when Taylor didn't start last night, Kromaski didn't start last night, and they went with Mota, who I like, number 7 for Inter Miami, but he's coming back from an injury. He hadn't played since April. He's going to probably fill in if Messi has to step out. But I thought the team looked better when Taylor and Kromaski were both in the 11. And you got Busquets in there. You know, you got Joseph Martinez. He actually didn't start last night either. And when he comes on, it's a different look. And this is a Joseph Martinez, by the way. Now, if you want to talk about playing with a smile on his face, that dude is magic when he's happy. And when he really is. And he's hungry and he's got that bite and that fight. Now that the responsibility in a lot of ways is taken off of his shoulders, he's just kind of on the receiving end, just make good hard runs, and he's got players that can find him the ball in those spaces. They become a lot different. And I think that if Messi had to sit out 3 or 4 games, that would be a problem. I could see teams being able to figure them out. But if it's just for a game or for 60 minutes because Messi's going to come on for the last 30, I don't really see Inter Miami missing a beat. And that's why I think that they could scrape into the playoffs, because they just have this momentum that even one loss, I don't think is going to slow them down. If they had a manager that was Phil Neville-esque and didn't know exactly what he was doing and didn't know how to manage his players in the best way, that's something different. But Tata Martino clearly knows this league inside and out. Obviously had success with Atlanta United. He looks like he's having a great time too. And it helps when you're winning games and you're winning these trophies and you're having success. Everything's easy. But
dude, the weird thing is the way that they've gotten results. And granted, they have, again, we don't need to mention the names of who they've added to make them a completely different type of team. But I go back to my 2010 season where, we set 3 or 4 records in MLS. We ended up losing an MLS Cup against Colorado Rapids. But
dude, how did that happen?
Neutral venue. And the fact that, what you're seeing from Gary Smith now with Nashville in terms of just batting down the hatches, that's what they did on us, except it was like -10 in Toronto.
No, I was at the game. It was freezing.
But when the point I was trying to get to is we were 10 points after 10 games, right? And we had come off the season before where I had gotten to the team. We had 5 games left in the season. We had to win all 5 to make the playoffs. We won 4, lost the 5th one. That if we won, we would have gotten into the playoffs. It was a run of 15-point swing basically to get into the playoffs.
Right.
Lost to Seattle, didn't get in. Next season, 10 points after 10 games, not great, not bad, and we just came together and started to grind these results. We ended up going, I think it was 19 games unbeaten. But what ended up happening is there was this belief where we'd be down 1-0 in the 90th minute, and Breck Shea, Eric Avila, Dax McCarty, Eric Alexander, somebody would come up with a play. Jeff Cunningham, somebody would just come up with a play. And as we did that after 10 games, there's this belief that it's 88th minute. You're not that worried. One, because you have the weapons that can deliver. And obviously Miami has unbelievable weapons. But 2, this belief that you've got the luck on your side. You've got you are playing with the tailwinds. And there's a mentality that you tap into, that psychological side that you think you can beat anybody. Even when you're losing, you're like, oh, we're not losing this game. We're down 1-0 and it's the 80th minute. We've got something in us, and that manifests itself in results. And that creates a really dangerous thing to play against or coach against, because, the San Jose's of the world had it at one point where they with the Bash brothers and whatever, they or the Goonies, sorry, that
Never say
exactly
die.
that they could score on you at any given time. That's the kind of thing that you can't coach against it. It's a weird kind of magic, and they've got that right now. And that is a really dangerous thing when you add that to the talent pool that they have. And like you said, they could play in a back 4, they can play in a back 5 right now. They're finding versatility and results in that. That's a really hard thing to stop.
So when you say that, I know you're on the fence. You don't know if Miami can get into the playoffs. I think that they will. Are you going to drink your own Kool-Aid and buy your own argument, and that they're going to have enough to get in? I mean, some things are going to have to go their way.
Some things are going to have to go their way. Things they can't control, other games, because again, the way the schedules work is that they're only playing one more Western Conference game. That's a toss-up for points, right? The rest of it can be monumental swings within the table.
Yeah.
In theory, right? So one team wins, one less game to play, they go up 3 points. You don't get any points. That's it's constant within the conference. And so that's the hard part. The other thing is that some teams just want a point, and that hasn't existed in his time.
You have to have a winner
within the tournaments, right?
Yeah.
You have to have a winner. And a team needing a point and being able to see that out and do other things is very different than the last gasp goal that maybe draws you level, that gets you into the next thing, the next thing.
Right.
It's a lot more about season management and whatnot. And then you add that to, again, his load management, the team's load management, and the international break and all that stuff. I'm on the fence on that. I'm not saying yes yet. Maybe when it's the last day of the season, I'll shift, Jimmy.